Monday Night Raw starts off with Rhea Ripley. She cuts a promo. She basically wants Raquel and Liv Morgan to end up coming out, but instead of Liv and Raquel coming out, it is Tiffany Stratton. She comes out and she's there to deliver a message from Nia Jax, and she basically tell her to stay out of her business or they're basically going to have a problem. Rhea basically ends up threatening Tiffany Stratton. They end up having an altercation. They go back and forth. And then Liv Morgan and Raquel ends up attacking Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton. They stand tall. And then after the match, this basically sets up a tag team match in the main event between Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley and Tiffany Stratton. And we are this story in this match and story kind of played exactly how you expect it to play out for the most part, telling the story of can Rhea and Tiffany, be able to work together and have Liv and Raquel being the heels to try to take them out. Now we know we're getting Jade and Bianca Belair versus Damage Control for the WWE Women Tag Team titles. This was actually a really good match. I enjoyed this match, but it ended up getting interrupted by Lash Legend Jakara Jackson interfering. They end up attacking Io Sky, which allowed Bianca to take advantage. They end up hitting the KOD, end up picking up the victory. Not gonna speak too much on this. The main thing I want to focus on is Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend. Um, are they now? To be fair, they still call them NXT talent on the show, but they need to just go ahead and get called up to the roster. Might as well just put them in the tag division. They're not doing anything on NXT. It's time. They're ready. They don't need to be in NXT any longer. Just put them on the main roster. Just might as well add another tag team, and plus they will easily be the most. They'll be the tag team that stands out the most if you give them TV time anyway. But I'm interested to see if they act. I don't think they're going to get called up because I can't remember the last time an NXT called up happened outside of a draft. Like I can't remember that, so I don't think it's going to happen. But it would be interesting to see. Now we end up getting a quick segment with Finn Balor, JD, and Anna Pierce. He basically Finn Balor basically wants another chance at Damian Priest, but Adam Pierce is not giving it to him. And then he ends up talking about how they need to defend their tag team titles. That way, he's setting up a tournament, which we end up getting a few matches on this episode of Raw for the tag team titles. I will say this: let's not have Finn Balor go after Damian Priest again. That feud is over. It's done. We don't need to revisit it. I'm sorry, we just don't. They didn't build it up that well, and then the match was also like we don't need it. We don't need it. As much I was excited for the feud, I thought it would be a great feud, but they just under deliver. It's not even Damian and Finn Balor's fault. It's more Triple H's fault. Triple H didn't book it right. He didn't put no effort, no soul into the feud. I just don't want to see it personally. Now we end up getting a Braun. Am I mistaken? Oh, Bronson Reed. I was finna mention the Braun Breaker segment, but I really don't think I need to mention the Braun Breaker segment to be honest. The Bronson Reed segment with Adam Pierce, he's having a sit down, and basically Bronson Reed ends up, admitting to why he did the things he did, why he's causing so much destruction, and he wants Seth Rollins. Adam Pierce ends up saying that he would give him the match if he doesn't cause any more chaos around the ring. Then this led to him asking Seth Rollins about the match. Of course, Seth Rollins is going to want the match. He talks about how much he needs the match and how he needs to get his payback. So it looks like we're gonna get this match. Um, I don't mind this feud actually. I think it could be really good. We all know Seth Rollins is going to win this feud. It's very obvious. I just hope that they do it in a way where Bronson Reed doesn't just lose, and then he's back to doing nothing like he was a few months ago. So hopefully they do it a way where Bronson is still booked strong, but they have Seth pick it up here. Even though I think Bronson should win the feud, I understand why Seth will win because you got the CM Punk feud coming up and you got to have him booked strong. So it makes sense. Now we end up getting Alpha Academy versus the War Raiders, formerly known as the Viking Raiders, but they got their NXT name back. Ivar and Eric are back on television, so that's good to see. Glad that they're both back. I think I'm super glad that Ivar and Eric back because if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn maybe it was false news, but I think they both had like serious injuries that was like career threatening. So if it was, I'm glad. Well, any injury, you want any wrestler, to get well soon. But the fact that they could have lost their careers, that's very devastating. Glad that they're back and healthy and back in the ring performing. They picked up the good, quick victory over Alpha Academy. This is one of the first matches of the tournament, so it'd be interesting to see if they make it far. to end up facing the Judgment Day, which I highly doubt though, because typically a baby face needs to face a heel, so probably gonna do more of a baby face team instead of a heel team. But I'm glad that they're back though. Now we end up getting Cody Rhodes. He cuts a promo. Gunther ends up interrupting, and he ends up saying that there's not much bad that he could say about Cody Rhodes, but the only thing he could say about Cody Rhodes is that he basically tries to be everyone's hero, and that's one of the reasons why he's not that good of a friend. Mentions KO turning on turning on Cody Rhodes, then attacking Randy and all that, and then I think Cody ends up responding. He ends up saying that his observation of Gunther as a wrestler is that he gets uncomfortable when his opponents keep getting back up and won't go down. He ends up mentioning his Mania match against Sami Zayn and how uncomfortable that made him in that scenario. Then Gunther responds back and ends up basically calling Cody Rhodes a secondary champion. Cody Rhodes ends up mentioning how, he ends up clapping back and ends up saying that he kind of brushed off the secondary champion comment and ends up mentioning how he defeated one of the greatest, if not the greatest and most dominant champion, Roman Reigns, at WrestleMania 40, which he has a point there. Then they both end up shaking hands, and that's the end of the promo there. This is really solid. This is really good. I enjoyed this promo. Nice little build up towards Crown Jewel. Really enjoyed this. Eventually, Gunther will probably attack Cody Rhodes. Eventually, just not now. But I like that it didn't end the way that it typically would end, with one or the other attacking. And then I like that they just shook hands for now. But I like the build up so far towards them at Crown Jewel. We end up getting a quick match between Braun versus Kofi. Braun Breaker ends up winning, of course. Then we get Braun Breaker. He tries to attack Kofi Kingston, but then Xavier Woods ends up coming in, preventing Braun from attacking. Xavier is checking up on Kofi, but then Braun Breaker ends up attacking from behind and constantly tries to attack Xavier. But then Jey Uso then comes out. He comes out for the save, ends up making the save, and that's in the segment there. And it is confirmed that next week we are getting Braun Breaker versus Jey Uso. So it will be interesting to see, will they pull the trigger? Will they pull what they did at SummerSlam, the whole Sami Zayn thing where he lost the first match and won the second one? Wonder if they're going to do that, or they're going to have Jey Uso retain. It's very interesting to see how this plays out. Get a quick segment. Rhea and Damian, they're going back and forth, talking about, the Judgment Day beef and all that. I hope now Damian Priest seems like he's done with the Judgment Day. I pray that he's done with the Judgment Day. No offense. I just pray that because I'm over the Judgment Day storyline. It's not that entertaining. Even with the addition of Raquel, it's still very boring. To be fair, Raquel never was that interesting to me to begin with, and even now she's even more boring if I'm being honest. I get what they're going for, the whole silent bodyguard. I get what they're going for. They're basically trying to go for like what Solo was when he was in the Bloodline, but I feel like it just fits Solo more when he was the silent enforcer. But Raquel, I don't. It just feels so forced. It just feels forced. I hope he don't go back to Finn. He talks about going back to the World Heavyweight Championship scene, which I would love for him to go back. He's not going to win the World Heavyweight Championship soon, but I would love for him to go back as a single star. We do not need him to go back to Finn Balor. We do not need to go back to that lackluster of a feud. If Triple H was to actually put energy and time into it, like we know he can, I will be open to it. But until he does that, no. Just let us retire the feud. Let them go. Let them do separate things, and let's just end it. Now we end up getting Jimmy Uso returning. Well, I wouldn't say it's called a return, but he ends up making an appearance on SmackDown. On Raw. I'm so used to Jimmy being on SmackDown that it's low-key confusing me on Raw. But Jay was looking. I think he was walking to a door. I don't know what he was looking for, but he was walking to a door, and then Jimmy Uso was there. Jimmy tries to ask him a question. Asks, does he have time? Jey Uso ends up leaving. Later, they end up having another segment where Jimmy looks for Jay, and Jimmy tries to recruit him, try to ask, but Jay end up saying no, and that he doesn't want anything to do with it. So it's very interesting to see how this plays out. They're building up that eventual Bloodline reunion that we all want, and I can't wait to see what happens. Now, I know it will be interesting to see how they build this up because they basically have about a month to really build this up, because I'm assuming they're building this up towards Survivor Series. So it'll be interesting to see how they build this up, how they would convince Jay to eventually join Roman, to eventually forgive Roman, forgive Jimmy, to see how that plays up. I'm very interested to see how they play that story. We end up getting The Miz versus R-Truth. During the match, R-Truth was, trying to be friends with The Miz, R-Truth being R-Truth. Then the final testament ends up coming out, distracting The Miz. R-Truth ends up rolling up The Miz for a pin, and he ends up picking up the victory. After the match, R-Truth is celebrating. You get the final testament. They are Karrion Kross starts pretending like he's on R-Truth's side, and then he tells the Authors of Pain to basically pull R-Truth in the ring, which allow the Miz to attack R-Truth. I'm interested in the story. The only issue I have is that with this story, there's not a high ceiling, only due to it being R-Truth. As much as the fans love R-Truth and the Miz is going to get heel heat, in terms of being elevated, that's more so the issue, because there's not much. Because R-Truth isn't that. I'm trying to think of the word. He isn't someone that you get elevated from in terms of being like a main eventer, or like, someone that's taken as a serious threat. So I wonder what's the real end game here. Is it him just being a heel and then he just goes back to being a loser like he was all of last year? Or would they actually push him and actually have him get a couple more wins and be more of a threat? Very interested to see how this story goes. Now we never get in the main event with Rhea, Tiffany, Liv, and Raquel. Um, End of the match, Nia Jax basically interferes in the match, causes a disqualification. Then Rhea Ripley ends up attacking Nia Jax, but then Liv Morgan ends up coming from behind, attacking Rhea Ripley. Then we end up getting Nia Jax, ends up recovering, attacking Liv Morgan. She ends up hitting the Annihilator on her, and then Nia Jax ends up telling Tiffany to cash in, because Liv Morgan's on the ground. She's knocked out. This is the perfect time. Then Tiffany Stratton tries to cash in, but then Dominic Mysterio comes in for the save, pulls Liv Morgan out the ring, and that's how we end Monday Night Raw. Gonna be honest, the main event I did not enjoy. The match itself, even before Nia interrupted, was not that good. It was very, I want to say sloppy. It was just boring. It was just very boring. They was telling the story of, Rhea, Tiffany can coexist. Raquel Rodriguez, I don't know if it's just me, but her in the ring is just not that good. I may need to check out other matches, but bro, she has not been. I don't know. Something is off for Raquel in the ring. I can't put my finger on it, but something is off. But yeah, I did not like the ending. Overall, this was a great episode. I mean, a good, not great. It was good. It was enjoyable, but I didn't like the main event only because I already knew Tiffany wasn't going to cash in, so I wasn't really getting excited. I didn't feel like this was needed, but I understand why they did it, to add the mixture of the Judgment Day stuff with, the Crown Jewel stuff. So I understand. But overall, this was a good episode. You guys let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.